I'm Rae Missigman. Welcome to my portion of Find Out Fridays, a fun project where Donna Downey sends a bunch of artists some interesting products to use, and we open and reveal what we're receiving on camera with you and then explore them in our art journal or in an art project. So I can't wait to get started. Hop on over to the table and join me. Hi, welcome to the studio. I'm so excited to share my product reveal with you today as part of Find Out Fridays. So to begin with, I was sent this irresistible Pico embellisher in a really pretty lavender color. These are completely new to me. I do love to use resist, and I work with it a lot. Both masking fluid and rubber cement are two of my fan favorites in the studio, but this is new to me. This is a tinted or colored resist that you can put on your projects. You can draw with it, write with it, do all sorts of things. It has a very nice fine tip from what I've read about. And then you let it dry and it becomes part of your project. And it works just like a resist, but it has a little bit of a color to it, and you can actually leave it on your project. So it sounds and looks really cool. Another thing that I know a lot of you are very familiar with and use all the time are pan pastels. And while I am familiar with them as a product, I don't typically use them. So I'll be curious to play with this a little bit, especially in conjunction with some of the other items I've been sent. And this is a very pretty permanent green shade. So I think for the time of year we're in, this is going to be another fun thing to work with. And it's the ultra soft pan pastels, so those are going to be nice. This is a completely new product to me, the rubbing plates. And I was given a series of different leaf prints, which are really, really cool. All different. Some are fern, some are your typical household looking leaves. There's some that look very South Pacific, just very interesting different shapes. And the plates themselves have both a raised and a deep set side. So I imagine you can get some really different looks depending on how you use these. And the funny thing is, I'm not sure that Donna knew this when she sent these to me, but I'm a huge fan of anything organic. So I really, really love that these are leaf shapes. And the last thing that she sent me was this beautiful signature stencil of hers, of Donna's, that's this great, also organic, very floral and leaf shaped stencil that I absolutely love. So I'm going to be experimenting with all of these, and I'm going to be working in one of my recycled journals. This is just an old catalog that I work in, and I'm going to be working on a page that already has some color on the background, because typically this is what I start with. So I've got this all ready, and I'm going to just clear my space a little and gather a few other supplies, and I'll meet you back here and we'll start experimenting. Okay, so I'm very excited to start with some of these products, and I just have to begin with the stencil because I love it so much. There are limitless things you can do with a stencil. You don't just have to pounce paint through it. You can use your pencil and begin a sketch with it as an outline. You can use resist through it. You can add ink through it and let it pool around, and it makes a much more abstract image than the bold image a stencil can give you with just paint. But in order for you to get a feel for what the actual image looks like, I wanted to go ahead and add some paint through this. I'm thinking it might be really neat in conjunction with the resist later on. And when I'm working with a stencil, I like to meld the colors with paint. I think it can add so much interest to the way it looks by adding white or a contrast color just to one portion of the stencil over the color that you're putting through it. So I really like how that is looking, and I think that's going to be a fun one to add some resist through too. And actually, since that paint was thin, I can go ahead and try that now. And the way this embellisher works is it's very, very fine tipped, almost like one of those needle points. And so the embellisher can work like a pen of sorts. And I'm just applying some through this stencil, and I'm actually being generous and letting it kind of pool under my stencil lines a little so that I get something that's a little bit more abstract. I don't typically want it to look very defined. And then I'm going to let that dry completely before I do anything else with that. And that kind of groups together with my other image as well. And what you can do is if you use resist on your stencils, typically they will rub off because they tend to be a little bit more like pliable as they dry, but you can use a wet wipe or a rag to kind of get them started so they don't sticky up your stencil. And I think the color next to these others is really, really cool. The other thing that was interesting to me was the pan pastel. And I know most people will use this typically as a chalk or something of that nature due to its consistency. But I thought it would be really neat to create some more opaque like paint with it. So I just used the end of my paintbrush to scrape a little bit off on a palette, and I'm going to add some white paint to that and see if I can't mix it up and create something really creamy and yummy with that color. The pan pastels are so highly pigmented that you can do that. And adding the white, it keeps the tone, it just brings it down a little bit, almost into the pastel range. And I might even add some of that through my stencil and cluster up here. The color it made is beautiful. And I have just mixed it with a craft paint, a gloss white craft paint. And I really, really love the color I got from that. That's going to be super interesting. And I'm going to use some of this up. I could sit in my art journal and make marks forever. So typically that's one of the ways I will test a product, is to kind of just play with it, make marks with it, and add it to my journal in a way that is very undefined, and then just, if nothing else, I end up with some really interesting backgrounds. So while that's drying, I'm going to set that aside and begin looking through my plates and see what I might like to use to experiment with those as far as the leaf shapes go, and what medium I might use with them to bring the etching to life on the page. So my resist and my paint are dry now, and I have some neat ideas brewing about that resist, but I really like the color and the abstract look I got from just squeezing it through the stencil. Now, one of my favorite plates in looking through these is this really organic looking fern, and I'm going to try just placing that under my page and using an oil pastel to rub over the top of it and see what kind of etching I can get from that, or what it's going to do to my page. And I think as it comes to life, we're going to get some really interesting shapes across the top of this color, especially because I've chosen to use a black oil pastel. It's really having that pattern show up. And I love it. I think it's really, really cool. I've chosen to use the little bit more raised side of the plate to begin with, and I think it looks so neat. Yeah, very, very cool. And you can see that by using just an oil pastel, I'm getting not only some more resist on my page there, but I'm getting a lot of contrast and a really interesting pattern by pulling it through that plate. I really, really like that. Now anything I do over the top of that, I've created a second resist with that oil pastel. So depending on what I do, I can either blend that a little bit or bring some of that forth. So I've finished my journaling page and I'm really, really in love with some of the things that have happened here. You may not be able to tell on video, but where I've added these dots of the Resist, the Pico embellisher, they're very raised and chunky and I love it. And I imagine I could probably peel them off if I wanted to. As a matter of fact, I have just done one and I can. So it is going to, under some circumstances, act like a regular Resist. And I love that. I may remove a few random pieces and see how that goes. I'm going to attribute that to the fact that I had a nice layer of paint down before I added that. I'm not sure if it would pull off quite as easily on plain paper, but I will definitely be experimenting with that. I also love what it did through the stencil. You can't see it probably, but there is a lot of texture and definition that I can feel here. And as I layered the paints and gelatos over the top of that Resist, I've got a lot of nice drag and texture and kind of sway and pull of those mediums over the top of that Resist. So it gives it a very interesting effect. I love, love, love the pan pastels mixed with the paint and then just brushed onto the page and water added to them. I actually created some dust with the end of a brush or a pencil and dropped it straight on the page and added water, and I moved it around a little bit and then pulled some of it back off with a cloth, and it left a little bit of a almost grungy area but in a color, and that was super interesting. And then mixed with the paint, it gave me a nice opaque interesting shade. So I'm really surprised by both of these. I honestly didn't know how much I would enjoy them. The stencils over the moon, I love what it can do, and I think it has the ability to create some awesome pattern. So I'm going to continue to use stencils from now until the end of the time. But I think what surprised me the most was the plate, and I really had fun with that, and I love the interesting depth I was able to create with just a couple seconds of swiping the oil pastel over the top of the plate. I'll definitely be working with that with some other mediums to see. But overall, I think it created a super interesting page, and I think that combined, those four products could go a long way in an art project. I will definitely be playing around with them some more, and this colored Resist is so interesting, and I'm seeing as I'm sitting here that it has the beauty of a Resist as far as pulling off and revealing what's underneath, but what I like is the added bonus of it being a very texturized, it's almost got a nubbly effect to it, so I could get regular Resist as well as some colored look to that pulled together, and I really like it. So I hope you had fun. I hope you'll give these a try and join me here again in the studio for more experiments.